I really enjoy Godzilla. I enjoy his movies. At some point in the mid 90s, my mom picked up Godzilla vs. Megalon on a VHS tape, and I got really into it. I loved the giant monster action, and despite how campy and goofy that movie is, I was totally along for the ride. It wasn't until many years later when I rediscovered Godzilla in my late 20s and finally watched the original movie from 1954 that I realized how deep the roots of the character are and how significant and unique Godzilla actually is. Godzilla is a monster inspired by a real human tragedy. 10 years before the making of the original Godzilla film in August of 1945, the United States detonated 2 atomic bombs over the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Over 200,000 innocent lives were lost in the explosion and fallout. Godzilla is a movie monster, but he may also be a sublimation of that trauma. Toho wasn't making a movie directly about the bombs, and there were giant monster movies already out there, particularly the American-made Beast from 20,000 Fathoms from 1953, but this Godzilla movie was a more socially acceptable way to express some of the devastation Japan had experienced. The movie was released in America, and in American media, depictions of the atomic bombs being dropped on Japan were pretty much non-existent. But this movie did come to America. Godzilla was a character animated by this lingering specter of nuclear destruction, both in real life and in his own story. Godzilla's head even bears a resemblance to a mushroom cloud when viewed from a low angle, and this was intentional. In the 1954 film, we see the tormented screaming of mothers and wives trying to find the names of survivors returning from a ship destroyed by Godzilla. There's a real sense of dread and impending doom as people scramble to understand what is attacking them and why. People are vaporized on the street by Godzilla's breath. Godzilla just keeps walking, leaving a sea of flame and destruction. The parallels to real events are not that subtle, and it gives these scenes a real sense of weight and trauma. My own grandmother once spoke to me about confronting death. After being diagnosed with cancer, she'd had a dream visualizing her cancer, seeing it as a dragon, and she was afraid of the dragon. My grandmother deliberately visualized that dragon changing its form and made it smaller and cuter, and this helped her deal with her fear. It goes to show that we do have the power to change our own perception of what death is or what it means or looks like. There's a quote from the film Jacob's Ladder, which is a loose interpretation of an Eckhart Tolle quote. "The only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of your life. Your memories, your attachments, they burn them all away. But they're not punishing you, they're freeing your soul. If you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. If you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from the earth." While the original Godzilla film is filled with dread and unimaginable horror, by the mid-1960s, Godzilla, in his success, had endeared himself to us. Toho produced 4 sequels to the movie by the end of 1964, including Godzilla's face-off against King Kong, and by 1965's Invasion of Astro Monster, Godzilla was more of an anti-hero and a defender of the Earth. This transformation of Godzilla's character continued, and by the 1970s, Godzilla was a far cry from his original conception. He had a son. He was a hero to children. He practiced karate and sometimes spoke to the other monsters. I have a personal fondness for this goofy era. Godzilla vs. Megalon was my introduction to the character, and it's the epitome of dumb, campy monster action. It felt good to cheer Godzilla on. We learn to live with our own trauma and even express it artistically, which can be a good constructive thing. And Toho had turned inspiration from a horrible tragedy into something captivating and beloved. I think part of why Godzilla as a character has survived for almost 70 years is that he resonates with our need to process trauma, to understand catastrophe. Godzilla is a personification of death that we actually love to see. In the original movie, Godzilla is ultimately destroyed by another weapon of mass destruction, Dr. Serizawa's oxygen destroyer. The oxygen destroyer can kill or disintegrate any organism that needs oxygen to survive in a pretty wide area. Serizawa is hesitant to use the device. He wants to dismantle it because its power would be too great in the wrong hands, but he eventually decides that it is the only way to stop Godzilla. Dr. Serizawa reluctantly descends into the dark sea and unleashes his own weapon of mass destruction. Feeling that he has done something unnatural, Serizawa cuts his diving rope, choosing to drown with Godzilla and the knowledge of the device in his head, rather than return to the surface. On the ship, his companions scream his name, but he's gone. It seems fitting that in his inaugural appearance, Godzilla is defeated by another horrible weapon. Thematically, it all fits together in kind of a poetic way, but this enduring, legendary character was born from this one brilliant, innovative movie made in a country that, for all its own historical faults, which are also very real and horrible, had experienced tremendous suffering and death on a massive scale. That's why Godzilla is a symbol of death, the product of a kind of alchemy, and I love him. It's beautiful that humans can use art to take something horrible and turn it into something that we love, something that makes people happy. I think that in times of suffering and death on a scale that is so hard to understand or even comprehend, the appeal of watching a giant monster rampaging through a city becomes even more apparent. It's something that we can understand, and it can provide some emotional context. Bad things do happen, and we can't always control them. When we see a monster destroying things, it's a very direct visual communication of that idea that instantly makes sense to us. Plus, they're even cool. Look at them. That's someone in a rubber suit. The world is going through a hard time right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people could find some catharsis and enjoyment out of that giant monster imagery at this specific moment. I'm sure we all have some things that we need to process. So, thanks for watching, and I hope everyone enjoys Godzilla vs. Kong when it comes out in a few weeks. It looks like more over-the-top kaiju action that I love, and I'm excited to see it. And stay safe and take care out there. Thank you for watching.